Hey Northwest Suburb homeowners, Justin with J Painting. Are you doing an interior painting DIY project this spring? Well, if so, you're in luck. Sherwin-Williams is having their blue bucket sale right now. In this video, I'd like to go over some of the tools that we use. So to do this, I'm just going to go over our 4-hour bedroom process. First thing we're going to do, we have all of our stuff in the middle of the room. We're going to cover that with plastic. So Sherwin, they have a big roll of plastic here. This is going to last you probably anywhere from 20 to 30 rooms. So if you're just painting 1 or 2 bedrooms, this is probably too much for you. Instead, you can just get a few of these little guys. Save you a lot of money, just enough for a room. That's what I would do. Once everything's covered with plastic, we're then going to lay down our drop cloths. There's multiple shapes and sizes. What we normally use is what's called runners. They range typically from 4 to 12 foot in width and length. And the reason they call it runners, they're going to run the length of the wall. We're going to do 4 on all 4 walls. Probably do 1 more going out the doorway, but really just need 4. Another thing you could use is plastic. I've seen people do that, but you have to be careful. The reason for the drop cloth is to cover your splatter, right? So if it goes on the canvas, that's going to absorb it a little more. It won't go through, it will protect it from the flooring or carpet. Plastic will also protect it, but if drops come on just plastic, they're just going to sit there like a ball of liquid. Eventually you're going to step on it and it's just going to transfer a lot more to areas outside of your room you're painting. So you can use plastic, I just recommend it. And also you can use like the old sheet, that also works. If you don't have anything, at least use that. But I'd highly recommend your drop cloth for your room. The next step we're going to do is we're going to patch the wall. To do this, we're going to use a couple tools. First thing, you're going to need something to scrape stuff down. I call them mountains, things sticking up from the wall. You're going to scrape down. I use a 5-in-1. It's good for scraping all the bits and stuff off the wall. So once that's done, then you're going to go through, you're going to fill all the holes, or alleys as I would call them, with compound. Everyone has, there's a couple of them, but these are the main 2. The blue one and the green one, I'll just call it for simplicity. You kind of want the green one because it's lighter and it dries quicker. The blue one tends to shrink a little more. But you want this size tub, so get the green one with this size. The reason why you want this size, the next thing you're going to use your putty blade, your putty knife. You want this flexible. The reason why you can't use 5-in-1, you can use this for 5 different things. You think, why can't I use it to patch my walls? You can, but it's hard to scrape the compound out, and when you're applying it, it really just goes everywhere. You really want something that has a little bit of give. Why do I have 2 different sizes? Once again, if you want the small little guy, if you're just doing 1 tiny room and that's it, 1 and done, sure, get the smaller one, get the little 1-inch. That's going to be plenty. But if you're doing a couple rooms and you might paint in the future, recommend a 3-inch for this bigger tub. It just goes farther, easy to get into. Eventually, even though if you have little nail holes or nail pops, you're eventually going to want to feather in a little bit and scrape out more than just the 1-inch. So 3 inches is kind of the best bet. So we have our stuff covered with plastic. We have our drop cloths down. We have our nail holes patched. After that, we're going to sand the walls. For sanding, you kind of need to be mindful of 2 things. One, are you going from a shiny sheen to a not so shiny sheen? So if you have like a semi-gloss or even an eggshell satin and you're going to a matte, you might want to sand your entire wall. In that case, you're going to want a radio sander. Recommend 120 grit. Sand your whole entire wall. If you're keeping the same sheen and you're not doing too much of a drastic change, you just want to sand your patches, then I recommend just get a couple sanding blocks. It says medium, I won't tell you the grit, but it's rough enough to sand down your patches and smooth enough where you can use it for a finer sand finish. Once that's done, we're going to protect our trim, our baseboard, window, and door casing. To do that, we're going to tape it off. All these different types of tape. You have frog tape, you have 3M tape, you have this other type of tape. To be honest, if it's just trim, I like using the blue frog tape. It doesn't really matter. If you have a baseboard where it's kind of older and it has some little bits taken out of it, kind of in rougher shape, all this will get you the same quality. But if you have a nice straight, like 1/4-inch flat trim, blue frog tape will get you a little more crispy of a line. But to be honest, you can work with all 3 of these. What you don't want the aggressive orange stuff. This will rip the off your walls and even the stain off your trim. So don't use this. Any of these should work. We have our plastic covered, we have our drops down, we have our walls sanded and patched, or patched and sanded rather, and taped all over the trim and base. Now we can get to the fun part, paint. In order to do that, you're either going to want a cut bucket or just paint right out of the can. Using a cut bucket, Purdy has a nice one. I honestly prefer a different one, which I won't go over in this video, but Sherwin, they have a great cut bucket here. You need a 4-inch for your 4-inch roller. But you also need, this is for cutting in. You also need your brush. So, we'll go over a couple different brushes. If you're just doing one room, you can just get a little cheap brush. You can paint with anything, to be honest. I can paint a room, give you the same results with all these tools. Just a little harder with some of the cheaper ones. But if you're on a budget, no problem using these. Another middle of the road, these quick solutions. These are good because they have a long handle. It's easier to get the harder to reach spots. If you're reaching over trying to get somewhere, works great. That's a couple bucks. This will be around 10 bucks, give or take. Good quality bristles, nothing special, but good middle of the road brush. I like Purdy. My go-to is a Purdy 3-inch exterior brush, technically. I like it because it's stiff. Good cut-ins with a stiff brush and then very soft at the very end. So cut-ins are nice and smooth. You don't have a flimsy brush. It works really great. The challenge is that the handle's a little shorter, heavier. If you're painting multiple rooms, your wrist is going to get a little sore. It's a little harder to handle at first, but once you get going, this holds a lot of paint. You can cut in quite a good distance. It looks really nice. A good middle of the road too. Instead of that, very popular. I kind of recommend this one. This is your 2.5-inch but angled brush. This is really going to help you. Once again, longer handle, really far. The angle is a little easier to keep your corners started. So you can paint the same way, like I said, with any brush. You can get the final result the same. It doesn't really matter. It's just what you prefer and how much you want to do. Once you have your cut-in done, with our process for a 4-hour bedroom, we're going to cut in the perimeter of the wall first, kind of using a roller on the edges, brush cut in on the top, roller on the side, roller on the base that's taped off. Looks pretty quick. Next, while that's a wet edge, we're going to use our 9-inch. Now you're going to need a roller frame. So a couple different types. To be honest, it doesn't matter if it looks like this, looks like this. What does matter is the quality of this material, your actual frame. The reason why is when you're painting, you go along, you get a cheap one. I'm not saying this is cheap, but say you get a cheap one. This is going to bend. And then when you're trying to roll, you're kind of, to go straight, you have to be crooked. You want a nice, firm frame that doesn't bend. That's kind of your goal. What brand you have doesn't really matter, but these at Sherwin, this Master works really well. They're easy to clean off. You can pop the sleeves on and off. They work with multiple pull types, snap on or screw on. Just a really good roller frame right here. Now you're going to need your pole. Once you have your roller frame, we have a 4 to 8 foot pole. It's more for your higher voltage areas. Probably a little too much for our bedroom. We also have 2 to 4 foot pole. This is probably the one I'd recommend for most homeowners. You're going to do a DIY project, you'll use this the most. You kind of have a little convenient 1x2. Some of my guys have this if we're doing a little stairwell or hallway. This looks good to kind of still be able to use it in spaces. But this is basically the one you're going to use the most. They're 2 to 4 foot. Once again, this has a nice quick connect where you can screw on either way. And then I used to not like the Purdy poles because they didn't have these holes and they would just kind of slide out, but they fixed that super quick. Now they have these blocking pins in there. Now it won't kind of, can't slide through. It works really good. Next, we need our roller cover. So I prefer the Purdy White Dove in a 1/2-inch snap. They came out with a new altitude, which also works great, reduces the splatter. You can go to the Walmart, get the most generic roller for 50 cents. Once again, it's all about your convenience and what works best for less splatter. Every roller is going to splatter a little bit. You can't get rid of splatter, but the quality of your material is more so how evenly it lays out, and if it's going to live big chunks of the roller on the wall as you paint. Once again, I can use any roller and make the final look great on every application. It just depends on how hard of a time you want, how much time you want it to take. So once again, I highly recommend Purdy White Dove. Altitude is also great. And then your nap, 3/8 inch is popular. I just prefer the 1/2 inch. Still gets a smooth finish and stipple, but just holds a little more paint. Now we have our sleeve on, we're ready to start painting. You're gonna need a tray. If you have a 5-gallon bucket like this blue one, you just get a tray liner like this, put it right in there and just roll right out of your fiver. But I prefer to use a paint tray like this. It's easier to kind of roll out with. Load up your paint. You can put a liner in there too. Just a lot easier just to kind of load your roller up and kind of go to town. And that's it, guys. So good luck with your DIY projects. If you have any questions about equipment or anything in general, just leave them in the comment below. I'd love to help you out. Yeah.